Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to draw a cumulative frequency curve. But first of all, we're going to go back to the notes and look at the whole thing from the start. So if you need to draw a cumulative frequency curve, first of all you need to actually have a frequency table. And why do we need a frequency table now? The reason is that once you start dealing with a lot of data, you actually need to put the data in intervals. So here in this example, you've got intervals of 10, 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and then it goes up to 50. And that's because in our data set, we don't have a number exceeding 50. That's why we stopped with 50. All right. And what we're doing is that between 0 and 10, we're looking at our data set and then we're checking how many numbers do we have in this range. Maybe we have a 2, we have a 4, we have a 5, a 6, and a 7. And these are the numbers between 0 and 10. So the frequency is 5. So it's saying that we have 5 numbers between 0 to 10. And in the same way, you have 8 numbers between 10 to 20. 12 numbers between 20 to 30, and we're actually referring to our data set. In our data set, we have 12 numbers between 20 to 30, 10 between 30 to 40, and 6 between 40 to 50. All right, so that's what a frequency table does for you. So you have different classes. There are a couple of questions whereby you determine your own class interval. So you decide whether you're going to have a width of 5 or a width of 10. Here we have a gap of 10 within each interval. So you decide that, and then you come up with that frequency table. And once we have this frequency table, we need to actually calculate something called the cumulative frequency. All right. And as the name suggests, what you do is you keep stacking the frequency. So you accumulate the frequency in the table. And if you go through the workbook, it explains to you how it's done. And I'm just going to explain to you how it actually works. So here between 0 to 10, you have 5 numbers. When you calculate cumulative frequency, you're actually working out how many numbers you have under a certain number. Okay? So for example, between 0 to 10, here we have 5 numbers. Between 10 to, then for the second interval, 10 to 20, you're actually doing 5 plus 8. And why is that? It's because we're saying that under 20, how many numbers do we have? So under 20, we have 5 plus 8 numbers, 13. Then under 30, you will have 13 plus 12. And then under 40, you have 25 plus 10. Under 50, you have 35 plus 6. It becomes easier when to understand when I'm actually going to show you the second table here. So you basically have your first table with the class interval and the frequency. When you create that extra column for the cumulative frequency, the first number stays the same always. So the first cumulative frequency is the first number from the frequency column. And that's because you're actually working out how many numbers you have under the upper bound. So under 10, I have 5 numbers. That's why the 5 goes there. Then, once you put the first number, you can actually do it this way. So you take the 5 and then you add to the 8. So 5 plus 8 gives you 13. And then you do 13 plus 12, it gives you 25. Then 25 plus 10 gives you 35. 35 plus 6, it gives you 41. So you see how I actually move the cursor so that you can calculate the cumulative frequency. So I'm just going to go through it again. So the first number stays the same. So the first number you write as cumulative frequency is actually the number which is the frequency. So 5, it's going to stay 5 here. Then you do 5 plus 8, 13, 13 plus 12, 25, 25 plus 10, 35, 35 plus 6, 41. That's how we work it out. But what's actually happening when you think deeply about it is that we're actually working out under 10, we have 5 numbers. Then under 20, I have 5 plus 8, 13 numbers. Under 30, I have 12 plus 8 plus 5. Under 40, I have 10 plus 12 plus 5, plus 5 plus 8, and the 50 I have all of that added. So you end up getting 41 as the cumulative frequency, and 41 is the total of all the frequencies added also. So that's one way you can actually check whether you got the right numbers as cumulative frequency, because if there is a mistake somewhere up here in the column, you're not going to get the right number. But if your top CF, top cumulative frequency, is the same as the sum of all the frequencies, then you know you've done it right. Okay, now the big question is, why bother doing all of that? The cumulative frequency table is going to generate something called the cumulative frequency curve, and that curve is actually very intuitive, and it's very easy to use the curve to come up with your median, your lower quartile, your upper quartile, your interquartile range. So since we're dealing with a lot of data, what happens is every time we're dealing with a lot of data, we end up creating a diagram which is actually going to communicate the same information the data set would have communicated. So we use that cumulative frequency table to create that cumulative frequency curve, and then the cumulative frequency curve is going to be used to generate all these amazing things I told you. So you look at section 6, it tells you that you will be able to determine the median, the quartiles, the percentiles, find the range, and find the interquartile range. All right. So what I'm going to do is on the board, I'm going to actually show you how we're going to use that table to sketch that cumulative frequency curve. Okay. So we're just going to switch screen so that I show you how it's done. So you will need to actually use your table to come up with the right numbers for the graph. But in essence, let me just do a mini version of the graph and just to explain to you which data goes where. So on your y-axis, you're going to have the cumulative frequency, and on the x-axis, you're going to have the upper bound, okay, of the classes. Okay, so that's what your graph is going to look like. On your y-axis, you're going to have the cumulative frequency. On your x-axis is going to be the upper bound. So I'm just going to write down the different values we had in the table. So we had classes, frequency, and then we had cumulative frequency. So 0 to 10, we had 5 numbers, so cumulative frequency is 5. Then 10 to 20, we had 8. So we do 8 plus 5, we get 13. Okay? And then we have 20 to 30, that was a 12. And as I told you, we do 12 plus 13, we get 25. That becomes the new CF. So that's how I actually expect you to work it out when you're doing it on paper. So 30 to 40, it's 10. You take the new CF, you add to 10, you get 35. And then 40 to 50, that was a 6. And then you do 6 plus 35, you get 41. And as I told you, the top CF, so the last number you get, this is actually the sum of all the frequencies. This sigma notation here means sum. So if you add all the frequencies, if I add all of that, I should get 41, and these two should match. All right. Now let's do the most important part, which is plotting that data. So on your x-axis, so I'm going to say that's my origin. On my x-axis, I need to have the upper bound. So these are the upper bounds: 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. These are the upper bounds. So you could decide to have one square for 10 units if you want. Let us see how it looks like. 30, 40, 50. It's a bit squished. It doesn't have a good range to it. So 1 square for 10 is a bit too restrictive. So I'm going to use 2 squares for 10, so that 1 square is 5. So 10, another 2 squares, 20, 30, 40, 50. Now this looks a bit better. All right. So on the x-axis we have the upper bounds. Now on your y-axis you have as minimum value 5 and as maximum value 41. Can we use 1 square for 10? So if I use 1 square for 10, you see the x-axis looks more stretched than the y one. So let us use 2 squares for 10 again. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I think we have quite a good space to work with to create the graph. Okay, so using 2 squares for 10 was actually a good idea. So what do we need to plot? We need to plot the upper bound as the x and the CF as the y. So in terms of coordinates, it looks like that. The upper bound here, the CF here. So 10, 5 is the first coordinate. Second coordinate would be upper bound 20, CF 13. Third coordinate would be 30, 25. Right, and 40, 35, and 50, 41. So these will be the coordinates you plot. So 10, 5 here. Okay, you can put a small cross if you want. 20, 13, 20 here. This is 10, this is 15, so 13 will be somewhere here. 20, 13, 30, 25, so 30 is here. 25 is exactly here because 1 square is 5. All right, so 30, 25, we got it. 40, 40 here, 35 is here, and then 50 here. 41 will be just above 40. All right, and then you can join these lines. Okay, so that becomes your cumulative frequency diagram. So here I've used actually straight lines to join them, but you can actually create a curve, okay, with the points. That would be acceptable. That would be accepted also. Okay, it's an acceptable thing to do. Now, once we have the graph, we can calculate all these amazing things I was telling you about. So if we need to find the median, and that's in the notes as well, we do the CF divided by 2. And when I'm saying CF, it's the top CF, so the 41. So 41 divided by 2, that gives me 20.5. Now that's the CF, which we'll need to read from here. So 20.5, okay, and then you need, it's a bit hard for me to draw, I'll try my best. So you need to read down from your graph. So that's something like 27. Okay, because 25 is here, so that's 27 or 28. You have better accuracy because you would be doing it on graph paper. Then we can calculate the lower quartile. So lower quartile is 1/4, so it's 41 divided by 4, and the rank it gives us is 10.25. So I read 10.25, so somewhere here. Okay, I read it from the graph. Then you go down, so it looks like something like 18. Then upper quartile will be 3/4 of the 41. Okay, that will give me 30.75. Then 30 is here, 30.75, that's actually 31, slightly up. Okay, and then you go down, and like I was saying, you'll have way better accuracy than me. 36, looks like 36. Okay, and then they can ask you to work out different percentiles as well. For example, you'll see in the notes, it refers to the 90th percentile. Then you do 90 over 100 times 41. You get that number, and then you read from your cumulative frequency diagram the same way. Alright, so that was median here, that was the lower quartile, and that was the upper quartile. And from these values you just calculated, you can actually create a box and whisker plot also if they ask you to create that. All right, so I hope that you found that video useful.